In the cold, misty fjords of 8th century Scandinavia, a land of ice, dark forests, and rugged coastlines, a hardy people known as the Norsemen were forged by hardship and the unforgiving sea. From these shores a new terror was about to be unleashed upon the world, carried forth in magnificent vessels with dragon-headed prows that cut through the frigid northern waters. The year is 793 AD. On the holy island of Lindisfarne off the coast of England, unsuspecting monks go about their peaceful prayers, unaware of the approaching storm. Suddenly, Viking longships appear from the mist, their shallow hulls allowing them to land directly on the beach, a terrifying sight for the isolated monastic community. Viking warriors, clad in leather and iron, leap from their boats with a savage fury, brandishing heavy axes and swords as they charge towards the defenseless monastery. The raid on Lindisfarne is a brutal success, a shocking act of sacrilege that sends a wave of terror throughout Christendom and marks the dawn of the Viking Age. The key to their success was the longship, a masterpiece of naval engineering, clinker-built for both strength and flexibility, able to withstand the harsh Atlantic waves. These ships were shallow enough to navigate rivers deep inland, allowing the Vikings to strike at the heart of kingdoms, reaching wealthy towns and monasteries thought to be safe. Viking society was a complex hierarchy of powerful jarls, chieftains, free carls, farmers and craftsmen, and thralls slaves, all bound by a strict code of honor and loyalty. At the heart of their culture was the family, with honor and reputation being paramount, and blood feuds often lasting for generations. Surprisingly, Viking women held significant rights for the era. They could own property, inherit land, and initiate divorce. The daily life for most Vikings was one of agriculture in their Scandinavian homelands, farming the short summer season to survive the long, harsh winters. Viking warriors were not a professional army, but farmers and craftsmen who took up arms for raiding seasons, seeking wealth and glory. Their primary weapon was the formidable Dane Axe, a long-handled axe capable of cleaving through a shield and helmet with a single blow. For the wealthy, the ultimate status symbol was the Viking sword, often intricately patterned with welded steel and passed down as a precious family heirloom. In battle, Vikings utilized the legendary shield wall, an overlapping barrier of round shields that formed an almost impenetrable defense against arrows and cavalry charges. Some warriors, known as Berserkers, would enter a trance-like uncontrollable fury in battle, fighting with a terrifying strength that made even other Vikings wary. Their worldview was shaped by a rich mythology, populated by powerful gods like Odin, the All-Father, a seeker of wisdom who sacrificed an eye for knowledge. Thor, Odin's son, was the thunder god and protector of mankind, wielding his mighty hammer Mjolnir against the giants. And Loki, the cunning trickster god, whose clever schemes and betrayals would ultimately set in motion the end of the world. For a warrior, the greatest honor was to die bravely in battle, earning a place in Valhalla, Odin's great hall, where they would feast and fight until the final day. That final day was known as Ragnar, a prophesied apocalypse where the gods and giants would clash in a world-ending battle. The Vikings were not just raiders. They were master navigators, using sunstones and their knowledge of coastlines and bird patterns to cross the open ocean. This skill led them to settle the uninhabited volcanic island of Iceland, where they established a new society governed by the Althing, one of the world's first parliaments. From Iceland, the adventurous and hot-tempered Eric the Red, exiled for murder, set sail westward and discovered an even larger, icier land he named Greenland. Decades later, Eric's son, Leif Erikson, guided by tales of land further west, captained a ship across the Atlantic, becoming the first European to set foot in North America. He and his crew established a small, short-lived settlement in a land they called Vinland, a place of grapes and timber, nearly 500 years before Columbus. Their encounters with the native inhabitants, whom they called Skrallings, were often violent, contributing to the eventual abandonment of the Vinland settlement. While some Vikings went west, others, known as the Rus, traveled east and south, sailing their longships down the great rivers of Eastern Europe. They established trade routes connecting the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, trading furs, amber, and slaves for Byzantine silver and Arabic silks. These Rus Vikings became the ruling class among the Slavic tribes, founding the state that would eventually become Russia. Their voyages brought them to the gates of the mightiest city in the world, Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. Though they failed to conquer the city, many Vikings chose to serve its emperor, forming the elite Varangian Guard, renowned for their fierce loyalty and prowess in battle. Back in Europe, the Viking threat reached its peak with the legendary figure of Ragnar Lothbrok, whose daring raids on England and France made him a legend. The sagas tell of Ragnar's final raid on England, where he was captured by the Northumbrian king and executed by being thrown into a pit of venomous snakes. Ragnar's death would not be the end, but a beginning, as his sons swore vengeance against the English kingdoms. His son, Eivor the Boneless, a brilliant and ruthless strategist, organized the Great Heathen Army, a massive Viking force dedicated to conquest, not just raiding. For years, the Great Heathen Army ravaged the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, conquering Northumbria, East Anglia, and Mercia, Only the southern kingdom of Wessex, led by the scholarly and resilient King Alfred the Great, stood against the Viking tide. Driven from his throne, Alfred was forced to hide in the marshes of Somerset, waging a guerrilla war against the invaders. In a remarkable comeback, Alfred gathered his forces and met the Viking army at the Battle of Edington, winning a decisive victory that saved England. The subsequent treaty established the Danelaw, officially ceding the northern and eastern parts of England to Viking rule, a testament to their lasting impact. In France, the persistent Viking raids led by the chieftain Rollo resulted in a strategic treaty, granting him the land that would become Normandy, the land of the Northmen. These Norman descendants of Vikings would adopt French culture and language, but they never lost their ancestors' ambition for conquest. A central part of Viking culture was the Thing, a local assembly where free men would gather to make laws, settle disputes, and pass judgment. To commemorate the dead or mark significant events, Vikings would erect massive runestones, intricately carved with images and runic inscriptions. Viking art was not limited to stone, with incredible craftsmanship seen in their intricate wood carvings on ships and homes. Their metalwork was also exquisite, with jewelry like Thor's hammer pendants and ornate brooches found throughout the Viking world. Viking burial rituals were often elaborate, with powerful chieftains sometimes buried in their actual longships, surrounded by weapons, tools, and sacrificed animals for the journey to the afterlife. As centuries passed, the conditions that created the Viking Age began to change, with powerful, centralized kingdoms rising in Europe, capable of defending against raids. Within Scandinavia itself, the separate chiefdoms began to coalesce into the unified kingdoms of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. The gradual conversion of the Vikings to Christianity replaced the old Norse gods and warrior ethos with new beliefs and values. The changing climate of the North Atlantic, known as the Little Ice Age, made life in the Greenland settlements increasingly difficult, eventually leading to their mysterious abandonment. The end of the Viking Age is traditionally marked by a final great invasion of England in 1066 by the Norwegian king Harald Hardrada. At the Battle of Stamford Bridge, the English army won a hard-fought victory, defeating Hardrada and ending the era of large-scale Scandinavian invasions of England. But just 3 weeks later, England faced another invasion, this time from Normandy, led by William the Conqueror, a direct descendant of the Viking chieftain Rollo. The subsequent Norman conquest of England in 1066 was, in a sense, the final and most successful Viking invasion, forever changing the course of English history. The legacy of the Vikings lived on, not just in their Norman descendants, but in the DNA of the people in the lands they settled, from Britain to Russia. Their words entered the English language, with terms like sky, knife, egg, and even Thursday Thorsday, originating from Old Norse. Their incredible voyages expanded the known world, and their stories of exploration and endurance continue to inspire us. Archaeological discoveries continue to unearth new insights, from massive ship burials to small, personal artifacts that connect us to their daily lives. The modern image of the Viking, often depicted with horned helmets, a historical inaccuracy, has become a global symbol of rugged individualism and fierce strength. They were more than just brutal raiders. They were master shipbuilders, intrepid explorers, savvy traders, and creators of complex societies. Their impact on the political map of Europe was profound, contributing to the formation of England, France, and Russia. They established a trade network that stretched from Canada to Central Asia, a truly global reach for their time. Viking law and the concept of the Thing influenced the development of democratic assemblies and legal systems in Northern Europe. The sagas they left behind, though written down centuries later, are a priceless window into their mindset, values, and heroic worldview. The Viking woman, with her relative freedom and authority, challenges our preconceptions of medieval societies. Their ability to adapt was their greatest strength, transforming from pagan raiders into Christian kings and dukes in just a few generations. The story of the Vikings is a story of transition, a bridge between the chaos of the Dark Ages and the formation of medieval Europe. They were a force of nature, an eruption of energy from the cold north that both destroyed and created. In Ireland, they founded the city of Dublin, which became one of the most important trading hubs in the Viking world. The struggle against them unified disparate kingdoms, forcing local lords and kings to band together for mutual defense. The wealth they plundered from monasteries and towns was often brought back to Scandinavia, funding the power of local chieftains and kings. 7 South. Their mastery of riverine warfare was unmatched, allowing them to bypass coastal defenses and strike with terrifying speed and surprise. They were a people defined by the sea, their lives dictated by its tides, its storms, and its promise of riches or death. The intricate knotwork patterns in their art speak to a sophisticated and complex aesthetic sensibility. Their belief in fate, or word, shaped their worldview, giving them immense courage in the face of overwhelming odds. They explored without maps, relying on memory, sagas, and an intimate understanding of the natural world. The Viking longhouse, a large communal dwelling, was the center of family and village life, a warm refuge against the cold. Their diet consisted of what they could farm, hunt, and fish, supplemented by the spoils of their raids abroad. They played strategic board games like Hennefataf, honing their minds for the tactical challenges of warfare. They were known to be surprisingly meticulous about their hygiene, using combs, tweezers, and ear spoons found in many archaeological sites. The end of the Viking Age wasn't a sudden event, but a gradual assimilation as they became part of the very lands they once terrorized. The fierce independence of the Viking chieftains eventually gave way to the centralized power of Scandinavian kings. The lure of raiding diminished, as European kingdoms grew stronger and better organized, making it a far riskier enterprise. Their legacy can still be seen in the place names of northern England, with towns ending in by like Grimsby or Thorpe having Norse origins. The Viking spirit of adventure is a core part of the identity of modern Scandinavian nations. They were the last of the great barbarian invaders of Europe, a final wave that marked the closing of one chapter of history and the beginning of another. The fear they inspired was so great that a special prayer was common in European churches: "From the fury of the Northmen, O Lord, deliver us." Yet, for every monastery they burned, they also established new cities and trade routes, becoming agents of both destruction and change. The image of the dragon ship sailing up a river remains one of the most powerful and enduring symbols of the entire medieval period. Their story is a reminder that history is often made by those who are willing to sail beyond the edge of the map. The Norse gods may have fallen silent, but the sagas of their mortal followers continue to be told. From the fjords of Norway to the shores of North America, the footprint of the Viking is etched into the landscape of our world. They were a people of profound contradictions, brutal warriors who were also loving parents, pagan believers who became Christian kings. Their tale is not just about conquest, but about the human drive to explore, to seek new horizons, and to make a name that will outlast death. The legacy of their shipbuilding techniques influenced naval design for centuries to come. They were the ultimate seafaring culture, a people whose identity was inseparable from the waves. The echoes of the dragon ships still resonate in our modern world, a timeless saga of terror, exploration, and the unyielding spirit of the Northmen.